I'm Nathalie Flores, and I serve as Vice President of Carbon Markets for Strategic Accounts at StoneX Carbon Solutions. We are a financial services company that bring our knowledge into the market to walk our clients into reducing their carbon emissions in the different commodities that we serve to. I think the biggest challenge for carbon market integrity and transparency is the regulatory framework. Right now, we are facing a gap into regulation in many countries, in many subnational governments, and even municipal governments. Therefore, the regulation in place and the policy framework for players and stakeholders and the private sector to commit with integrity in reducing their carbon emissions will come when countries are ready to give them the right incentive and the right regulatory framework for MRV. So the ultimate goal is to reduce carbon emissions in order to balance the Earth temperature and in order to balance the Earth system and how it affects our countries. From my perspective, nature is key into the protection of the climate system. I always like to put nature at the forefront of what we do because this is the ultimate goal. Nature is the one that is going to regulate what we want to achieve and to reduce the temperature of the world and how the Earth system is affecting us. But diversification of other climate technology, we need to make everything play, right? So the other technologies of carbon emissions reduction should come to play to help the enhancement of the nature-based solutions. Right now, forestry, for example, is the cheapest way to reduce carbon emissions because our forests, as simple as it sounds, absorb the carbon from the earth. And therefore, a market that protects this ecosystem and the climate finance that protect this ecosystem and then plays a role in the full circle of carbon emissions reductions is the key to make carbon markets work. Well, in the world we live in right now, and coming back a little bit to nature-based, technology plays an amazing role. I used to serve governments before, and I know the resources that governments need in order to make regulation, to make the market provide integrity, and to have MRV. In order to have MRV, we need data. In order to have robust processes, we need technology. And right now, I think the private sector plays a key role in order to deploy the technology needed to monitor carbon emissions reductions. Carbon emissions reductions and technology shouldn't be seen separately, specifically for small countries or even mid-sized countries that don't have the resources to perform these calculations and then hold themselves accountable because this is the carbon that is being exported to developed countries. So technology at this moment needs to be included in the budget of these countries and even big countries and even aid deployment and even investment in general in order to make the market work. Usually the market has been very criticized regarding integrity of measuring, reporting, and verification and the data used to actually identify what is a ton, what is a credit, and what is the export. Therefore, the technology plays this role that we've been trying to achieve for many, many years. The private sector have been stepping up, monitoring with satellites, with drones, and with technology that has been put in place directly for the carbon markets. Therefore, once these forces become one and can work together, this technology it's going to be serving the most vulnerable and also will make the connection in between all the stakeholders and the player of the markets. And lastly, I think we have to walk the talk, meaning that in order to put that technology in place, we still need to tackle the emissions from that technology. And that's where the markets will have a challenge at the moment because we have the technology, we have the communities, but then how do you match that in order to have the emissions reductions at a balanced pace and holding the business accountable in terms of walking the talk. That's a topic that I like a lot because the evolvement of the market in the past years. So 10 years ago, countries were trying to decide on the Paris Agreement rulebook. And that's what we know today as bilateral cooperation, Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, and non-market approach for carbon emissions mitigation. So right now that the Paris rulebook is finalized, we need to save time. 2030 is around the corner. And the private sector has put together a huge infrastructure for the voluntary carbon market that has been serving their voluntary approaches for the past 10 years, in which countries were trying to decide a global framework. So if we count that from now to 2030, it's less than 5 years, it's actually 4 and less years. We need this infrastructure in order to serve the countries and in order for the countries to actually hold themselves accountable when reducing carbon emissions from now to 2030. Therefore, now the voluntary carbon market infrastructure comes to play a key role in the evolvement from voluntary to compliance. So right now, with the whole infrastructure created and in place, and the countries open to put that into their legal framework, or their policy framework, will be key for the evolvement from voluntary carbon markets to compliance markets. And the infrastructure is helping countries to save time. So we have countries like Chile, Peru, Paraguay, to mention many from Latin America. We have countries in Africa like Ghana, like Rwanda, like Tanzania, that are using voluntary carbon markets credits in their frameworks and are officializing that from a very robust policy perspective, integrating that in their MRB systems to the global framework and into their national frameworks. Right now, we are in a difficult geopolitical situation, which for some, it's something super normal. For others, it's something that if we look back, we were like, where are we standing at? But I think that countries like the United Kingdom or the European Union are holding themselves accountable with their carbon emissions regulations. And that's why at the Carbon Solutions Desk of StoneX, we have put together 2 tools that are tackling that and helping other countries to navigate that. One with the EU ETS specifically and the UK ETS, and the other one is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism of the European Union that at the end affects all countries around the globe. And tackling with products that can help countries navigate these regulations is part of the risk management that we provide. I think most countries around the world, from Southeast Asia, from Latin America, are now playing a key role to export to these constitutions and being competitive. It's around tackling the regulation and being prepared for what the developed world is putting into place to help us reduce our carbon emissions reductions globally. Well, it's super interesting for me specifically because I've been working in carbon for many years now, and it's specifically climate policy, as you can tell. But being in a conference that combined hydrogen with carbon has been very enlightening for me. Yesterday at the training on carbon and hydrogen specifically, and today, knowing like the companies that are based in Texas working on hydrogen and emissions reductions has been enlightening for me. And of course, looking forward to take part on our panel tomorrow in which we will talk about my favorite topic, which is emissions reductions.